2 months earlier, I kicked it up. You know what? I just changed. I slashed a month out of it, 2 months out of it. We're going here.
Yeah, this one. I took my blood pressure. Yeah, I thought I'd pay attention more today. I did with that sheet of paper.
Good.
One of them up lines. I didn't do anything with 2 lines.
Are we ready, Jonathan? Tell me when we're ready. Okay, we're going to get this meeting started because everybody's here. We'll have a roll call vote. I am here. Miss Allen,
Here.
Mr. Gibbler.
Here.
Halen,
Here.
Mr. Horstman,
Here.
and Mr. Struckstead.
Here.
Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Anybody see anything or stand as they are printed? Sounds good. Visitors, Dee, do you have something right now? Or thanks, Dee. Appreciate it.
Not to make you nervous or anything.
It's all right. I don't get nervous. We're going to jump right into claims then. So it is exciting. I'm going to pass the second sheet.
Oh.
There you go.
All right, Iron Mountain, $97.34.
That's under line item 009. Jim to review if he wants. And
Okay. Nancy Peterson for $63.84. Ashton Gazette, $41.50. Fiddler, $1,299.36. Quadient Leasing, $354.99. SBM, $379.28. US Bank, $43.46.
I have a total of $2,182.43.
may Nancy, do you want to give your report?
Good morning, everyone. The $63.84 for myself was for mileage. We had a Zone 4 meeting in Belvedere. So that was a wonderful meeting. I got to meet a lot of the clerks and the recorders on that day. And there was an awful lot that was being discussed at that meeting. And I would like to just bring some of that forward to the meeting of what was discussed. A lot of it has to do with the Illinois General Assembly is taking on this bill SB 825. And if it gets approved by the governor, that's going to move the primary election back 15 weeks. So election in 2022 is going to go from March 15th to June 28th. It's sitting on the governor's desk right now. So candidates would begin petition passing January 13th. So there's a lot of change going on right now. Also, they're looking at that redistricting that looks like it passed the governor's desk. I think it was Friday night. Yeah, Friday night at 7:22, he signed the redistricting map bill. And that's going to be affected by the census, which means it's going to go probably to December. So I'm in the works of talking to Charlie what we have to do about that.
So I know we had the redistricting we had to have done probably by the end of this month, or at least something started. It sounded like nothing until
Right,
even
that was
December
the normal, in the normal world, that would have been the time frame that would have happened. But since they're moving the census back into the fall, yeah, nothing, I mean, this says here December
right?
is what they're looking for the redistricting and stuff like that. So that's what I'm talking to Charlie about.
Thanks, Charlie.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
Was there a reason given for changing the primary date for voting?
Yeah, so it all goes back to the census data that normally would be available right now. So we would go forward with, normal petitions would be taken out this fall. They would do the redistricting. And now since the census is not going to be, those numbers will not be available until they're talking September. So that pushes everything back. Normally this is June. So you're talking, 3 months. So then that's why they're pushing everything forward.
Thank you.
Sense? Questions?
Would that just be a one-time primary change?
We hope so. Yeah, because it's, like you said, it's affecting the census
Right.
data being late. It's just affecting this. So that'll be interesting, just to say that you'll be doing the petition passing in the worst months of, for us, it's January, February.
And that for all of us is the primary
You're,
petition
that's right.
for when we're all back up for reelection.
Yeah.
And that's the reason for, we have to wait on the redistricting, especially with the reducing the size of the county board.
Correct.
Now, I also heard that they're requiring voting booths in jails, county jails, in this particular bill also. When they say voting booth, quote unquote, what do they mean by a booth? Did they comment on that, or?
No, there hasn't been too much discussed on that.
I mean, we were allowing inmates to vote while they were in jail the way we were doing it. I couldn't understand what the difference in a voting booth.
Right. Yeah, no, that's something that I haven't seen too much come across about that, but
Just curious.
yeah. And that's all I have.
Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Nancy, thank you very much. Moving on to the treasurer.
Okay, Amboy News, 3950. Civic Systems, $2,500. Paul Rudolphi, $33.60. Samantha Schmidt, 1942. Samantha Schmidt, 7980. Sterling Business Machines, $34. Business Machines, $342.19. US Bank, $59.08. US Postal Service, $322 even.
I have a total of $3,429.59.
Fantastic. Treasurer report?
You have the motel bills to do yet too, don't you? Hotel motel ones?
I do. I'll do it after.
Okay, that's fine.
on the,
Just checking. So tax bills went out a week and a half ago, so they would have hit mailboxes early last week. We've been pretty busy with that and been sending a lot of traffic down to Wendy's office, not Amy's office, to Wendy's office to ask about waivers and freezes and why they're assessed so high and all that kind of stuff. So we've been pretty busy with that. I did hire another employee. Her name is Debbie Robertson. So if you haven't met her yet, she's working out fine. She's been there 3 weeks now. So that's about it.
any additional questions for Paula? Thank you, Paula. Moving on to ROE.
ROE 47, $544.02. Another ROE $100.66. And last one, $1,333.34.
I have a total of $1,978.02.
Bob, would you like to give a report?
Well, first of all, those aren't the bills that I have. Bills that I have are not, so I don't know if she sent you last month's bills a second time, but that, nothing was jiving, and I thought, you guys are playing a trick on me on my last committee meeting.
Nothing good.
Yeah, geez, I mean, I'm not even gone yet, and they can't get things right.
These do say April.
Oh, there we go.
I might have printed them out from last month. Please don't blame them.
Oh, no, we're gonna blame it on Sherry, because she's not here.
Okay.
Let's try it again.
So we need to pretty much scrub that,
Scrub that.
scrub all those.
I think you guys were just making sure I was still paying attention in my last meeting.
That's right.
We did do it on purpose.
I'd go with that.
All right, let's try this again. All right, this is for May. $1,351.12.
That sounds better.
Okay. And $72.45. And $666.67.
Okay, the new total is $2,090.24.
That sounds better. Bob, you want to give her a report?
There we go. That works.
Knew we'd get there.
All right. So the State Board of Education has come out with a position paper that next year we will be face-to-face. As far as we know right now, the students will still be required to wear masks because we don't have a vaccine for under 12 yet. So until that, if that gets approved over the summer, that could change. But right now, face-to-face throughout the state, even Chicago, but we'll see about that. And then mask would still be worn. So it'll be something that we did last year, which I'm very proud of our office, is keeping all the administrators up to date on the latest guidelines. And they did our office did an amazing job. Our professional development department had weekly administrator meetings when they kept changing the rules. We're going to do the same thing, I'm sure. And they'll have everybody up to date and ready to go until they change the rules the next time. So that's what we're planning on. We're telling everybody to build their same calendar. Remote learning will be probably only on a medical need. So if there's a doctor that says, or a mental health professional that says that this student has to stay home, then they will be allowed to, but it won't be the parent's choice. It'll have to be a doctor or a mental health professional or something saying that there's a reason that they have to stay home. That's the plan right now. So let's hope that holds. We had our first face-to-face superintendent's meeting in May. It went very well. It was amazing. We had a new superintendent from Prophetstown that had never physically met all the other superintendents. He was introducing himself. They all knew him from this little box on the screen. But he was introduced, like he went up to Margot Empin and said, "Hi, Margot, I'm John from Prophetstown." They'd never seen each other. And it'd been almost a whole year. So it was really good. We had really good participation. One of the things that we talked about was the new funding, the COVID funding that's coming from the state to the school districts. We presented on a program that our professional development department, Chris and Angie, had put together. It's called Nexus, and it is a way to pool some of those funds to help kids that have experienced trauma. And there's going to be a lot of that. And also to catch kids up, tutoring, different things. And the problem with this funding is it's there for 3 years and then it goes away. Districts are hesitant to hire somebody and then have to lay them off in 3 years. They're hesitant to start a program that's going to go away. What we are asking them is to pool some of their money together. We will hire the people that will do that, so the small districts still get the benefit of counselors and trauma-informed and tutors. And then at the end of the 3-year period, we hope that we have built up enough goodwill with the districts that they'll want to pitch in the 10% that they're putting in, and we'll keep them. So that's out there. We had 6 districts sign up within the first week. So out of 24, we already had 6 signed up right away. So I hope that's going to go. I think it's a great idea. It keeps everybody on the same page because instead of, we're pooling community resources too. So instead of 2 or 3 different people referring a student to different agencies, they're all going to try to go through our office. We're doing the same thing with early childhood. We have a group that's together and we're working on that. So it's a reporting group. So everybody reports to our office and we help them all get community-based programs throughout the 3 counties. And there are community-based programs in some counties that there aren't in others that are willing to go to the other counties with permission. So it's going to be a great program. I'm really proud of them. You can see that our professional development, we only had 100 participants, but it's May. Teachers are just trying to get through the year. I went to an end of the year for District 13, which is Rock Falls Elementary. And the kindergarten, 2nd grade principal said that he was in the cafeteria and the little girl came up to him and said, "Mr. Calkins, can I see your ID?" And she just kept looking at it and looking at him. She said, "I've never seen your face," because he's always had a mask on. And then he had a little boy in his tranquility room, which is what he calls the room where he puts kids to settle down. He came out, he said, "Mr. Calkins, are we ever going to be able to hug again?" He goes, hopefully next year we'll be able to do that again. So it's just how the year went. I really want to point out our Regional Center for Change. We have a Student of the Year this year. Rebecca did an amazing job. If you read her story, when she came in last year, she was belligerent. She talked in commands instead of questions. The kids didn't like her. And now the second year, she was on the leadership team. She's changed her tone completely. When she finished all her lessons, she was helping other kids. So it's just, and I love their slogan is, we're the Regional Center for Change, not the Regional Center for Staying the Same. So I like that. Their mascot is the Phoenix. The kids voted for that because they rise out of the ashes, because they're either been expelled or they're close to being expelled, or they're having problems that they just can't handle the brick and mortar school. And we just want to get them back on the right track. Our education outreach program does the same thing, but with kids that have already dropped out of school. And as you can see in this, we have this school year, 14 students earned their GED, and 12 previous graduates have secured employment through our office, through this program. And so we took them from the taxpayer rolls to paying taxes, which is what we want to do. We have 4 recent graduates. I went to the adult education graduation at Sauk, and it's just, I spoke at that. It's my favorite graduation of the year, because these kids were told by a lot of people they just couldn't do it, and they did it. So I thought that was really cool. Our Truant's Alternative program is serving so many kids this year, not quite double. We had, instead of 460 or so, we're almost at 800. But it's because you have to go track down kids that lost their internet. They aren't showing up, their screens go blank. So we're hoping we get back to some form of normal next year, but we think we're going to have a lot of problem with anxiety with kids not wanting to go to school. We're also opening up another classroom in our alternative school for those kids that they have to go back to face, and there's so much anxiety about going out into the real world now. And so we are opening up a place where they know they have the guidelines are being followed, and we'll have a maximum of 10 kids socially spaced all around the classroom. We already have a teacher hired, so we really think we're going to do that. And this we stuff, it's going to be we, even though I'm not going to be there. McKinley Vito that's our homeless. It's been tough because it's really hard to have our eyes and ears, which are our bus drivers, our cafeteria ladies, our school secretaries. They don't see the kids. So we don't know if they're doubled up and homeless. All we know is that they're a face on a screen, hopefully. So we think we're going to find a lot more kids that are underreported as homeless, because we don't call them homeless, we call them in transition, because a lot of them are doubled up, and that's considered homeless under the act. But they don't want to say they're homeless because they're not. They have a home, but they're living with an aunt or a sister or whatever, and they could be kicked out at any time. That's where they need the benefits of our program. That's where we at. I think that's it. Yep, that's all I got. So thank you for your support over the years, and this will be my last committee meeting.
Bob, appreciate everything you've done for Lee County and the Sauk Valley area. Any additional questions for Bob?
Enjoy retirement.
I'm retiring June 30th. My last day in the office is June 25th.
So you can come and serve on county board.
No.
Okay, moving on.
That was quick.
That was very quick. County board, county general.
Okay. Otosen Dinaflow and Company.
It's an attorney.
Yeah. $5,875 even.
Just so everybody knows, that's the attorney for the FOP contract.
Quill, $45.12. SPM, 170.98. US Bank, 265.87. Whipley, $1,950. AIM, $1,243 even.
And for the people asking on the AIM, that is their hiring program. So we met with them. It puts it through LinkedIn. There's like 22, I believe, different sites that they currently promote to. We're looking at each individual department. It pays about $250 per posting, and this is $1,200 for the entire year. So if we use it and promote our department heads to use it, we'll gain that money that they're already using on these other accounts in 5 postings. And I believe so far, Wendy, you just posted and it's been much positive.
I was actually going to report on that when I get to mine, but
Perfect.
yes, I agree.
I have a total of $9,549.97.
Moving on to tourism.
Okay, Lee County Tourism, $6,717.12.
Thank you.
And City of Dixon, $6,717.12.
Total $13,434.24.
Moving on to the assessment office.
Robin Schwartz, $1,767.50 for 50 cents. Leaf, $234.18. Kevin Carr, $785.40. Jared Yater, $131.04. Sauk Valley Media, $75.50. US Bank, $201.54. US Bank, $191.12. US Bank, $543.97. US Bank, $20.18. Jennifer Boyd, $191.52.
I have a total of $4,141.95.
Moving on to the GIS fund.
Quill, $36.70. Verizon, $20.02.
For a total of $56.72.
Wendy, do you have a report?
I do. So to jump back for just a minute to the AIM conversation, I did have the opportunity to get involved in the AIM onboarding. If you remember, AIM was the professional organization that the county joined a month or 2 ago. One of the reasons for joining was they do have this hiring platform that if the county departments all, have buy-in to this and post our positions out there, The positions can all be posted through AIM, and AIM goes out to 22 different platforms, including Indeed, which is the one I tend to like to use. By way of comparison, before I realized we were heading down the AIM path, I had already posted my new position out on Indeed 2 weeks ago and posted that. I ended up with approximately 82 applications in week 1. Partway through week 1, that's when I learned of the AIM opportunity. And again, as Chris pointed out, rather than me individually paying Indeed, the idea is that all departments funnel all of our postings through the AIM professional organization, which is, again, goes out to Indeed as one of those platforms. So I backed up. The $250 that Chris mentioned a little bit ago was what I estimated my total cost to be. But because I knew it was going out on the AIM platform and we were already paying for that, I essentially tied off any AIM, or excuse me, not AIM, but Indeed further applications and pushed everything through AIM because I really wanted to do some comparison and see what we got through AIM versus what we got through Indeed. I can tell you that there are a lot of duplicates that I've gotten. I've gotten a total of almost 150 applications. Of that, though, there are a lot of duplicates, things that I had already received through Indeed, and I got a second time through Indeed, through AIM, essentially. Bottom line is I'm wading through all of those applications right now. The AIM platform, I've had just a bare minimum of experience with. Becky included me on some training just to understand the platform itself and how you navigate around it, the reporting opportunities that are there. So far, I'm really liking it. More to follow as we continue to use this as an example of how directly going out to Indeed versus going out to AIM with these 22 other ways to promote a job out there. So I'll be happy to report back and let you know kind of the comparison and what I think of it overall, but so far I'm pleased.
Awesome. And I know Paula, you had struggles getting applicants for your last posting. I would have really, hindsight's 2020, it'd have been awesome to see what we could go out there and post at. So as we continue to just promote department heads to stuff to use in this program.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have, but I also have since determined that I don't think I set up my Indeed account correctly. So that might have been my problem too.
Oh, there you go.
So
I will
from
also
comparisons with Wendy, and I'm like, something didn't get put out there. So
I will also share with you that obviously with having 150 applications or even just 82 applications through Indeed, if you just look at that side, it goes without saying that I end up getting people that, 50% of which are not really, their job experience isn't really where I needed it. You also need to remember that to get that many applicants, it's because for our salary range right now, we're essentially at minimum wage. And so I can't make my job requirements super high. I'm looking for a clerical position, absolute mandatory that you've got your high school diploma or a GED. I prefer to have an associate's or something, but I'm mostly looking for clerical on the job experience because again, for our pay scale, but because of the pay scale too, it opens up that job for a lot of individuals that, if we posted, for example, for a department head position, it would probably be a different experience. So clerical is a pretty broad category and it does get me a lot of applications. But anyway, we're wading through that now. So that's something I wanted to give you a heads up on. We're hoping to have somebody this week. We're going to make selections on who we will interview, and we're hoping by 3 weeks minimum, maybe 4 weeks, we'll have somebody actually on staff. So we're working towards that. A couple other things on the assessment side of things. As Paula noted, we do have tax bills out, and this is always a busy time of year for us. I will point out though that it's exceptionally busy this year with individuals who, for whatever reason, did not get their exemption applications into us. I assume, or we are making the assumption that it's COVID that kept people at home and then you forget about it. The good news is that if someone comes in today for all except the leasehold exemption, we can correct those if they now file after the fact the correct application. So we can issue a corrected tax bill. That's the good news for the taxpayers. The bad news for taxing districts such as Lee County is that at this point in time, that is a direct loss. Every time I issue a corrected tax bill and we issue a refund back to somebody, it's a direct loss to all the taxing districts, including Lee County. So we prefer not to be doing a high volume of corrections because it does take right out of the bottom line of our extension collection. So just as an FYI. I hope that you all noted the numerous signage that we have coming in the door. As you know, the former pit area was converted to a conference room with all of the restructuring of the ITGIS and assessment world. And Paula gave up that space. She's now collecting taxes on the second floor. We are attempting to get people to not come into the assessor's office and want to pay their taxes. It's got mixed results, believe it or not. We still find people walking past all the signs that get to our office and say, I'd like to pay my taxes, in which we have to redirect them upstairs. The arrows on the floor, I hope you noticed, are critically important in our opinion, and I appreciate Paula doing that because the grand staircase in this building is beautiful, but it also can be slippery, dangerous, and difficult. And so we don't want any accidents. We prefer people use the elevator. Actually, what we'd really prefer is that people take it to their local bank or put it in the mail. They don't need to come into this building. Hopefully from last year when we had the building locked down, people will learn that. Bottom line is we're super busy with that conversation. As Paula said, there's a lot of traffic being redirected back to us because they didn't get their exemption or they don't understand their bill or they want to understand their assessment. So we're super busy with that right now. This is the month out of the year that we kind of go backwards in time and we spend all of our conversations talking about what the work we did last year. And after the first installment due date, which is July 2nd, right? Correct. July 2nd, then we'll kind of shift gears again and we'll go back to 2021 assessments. But for right now, we're pretty bogged down in 2020 world, which is normal with a little bit higher volume, as I said. Last month, I did not update you on the day-to-day activities of either the assessment office or the GIS department because I used all of my allotted time to talk about the GIS recording fee and the new personnel and et cetera. So I'm going to just give you a quick high-level overview. I also have a written report, which I will give to Becky and she can submit in the packet that kind of gives an idea of what we've been doing in the assessment office and the GIS world. The last couple of months in the GIS department has been a lot of focus on other departments and communicating with them, whether they've had an issue that needed to be resolved or whether it was us reaching out to them and asking, you know, what can the GIS department do for you? A couple of examples, and there'll be more in the written report, but a couple examples were we did meet with a couple staff members in the recorder's department. They had expressed an interest in better understanding the GIS maps and how they could use those maps when taxpayers or constituents come into their office. And so Tom and Carmen spent a little time meeting with them, and then they actually made some modifications to the GIS online map to better suit what the recording department was looking for. And then of course, we're waiting for some feedback from them as to whether that meets their expectation or whether there's anything else that they needed. We also did, by the way, speaking of the recording fee, you will have that on your agenda because that was an ordinance that laid over and it will be back on the agenda this month. When I spoke with the state's attorney's office, Brian Brim specifically, he looked over everything and gave his stamp of approval, you might say, but he strongly urged, and I thought it was a great idea, that we promote this proposed change out to the public so that the public has an opportunity to express their concern if there is any, rather than waiting until the decision is made by the board and then push that out to them and say, hey, by the way, we raised our fees, do it now. So we did post that out. If you pull up the online GIS maps, you'll see a note on that. If you pull up Nancy's recording page, you'll see a note on that. So we're putting the word out there that this proposal is on the agenda for the county board. I myself have received one phone call from that. It was from an appraiser and he was concerned his fees for making copies were going to be changing, not recording. So I was able to clarify that. Nancy, do you know if you guys have received any phone calls or anything?
We have not received any phone calls yet. Emails went out and actual hardcover letters went out to banks, title companies.
Yep. And again, that was at Brian Brim's suggestion, so we appreciate that. So that was the recorder's world that we were working on over the last couple of months. In the zoning world, there is an ongoing need for the GIS department to prepare those adjacent landowner requests. Most recently, The South Dixon Solar Project, which is going to be coming back before you, they needed a list of all property owners within 1,000 feet of the project parcels, because they held a recent community open house meeting. So that's just one example of the requests coming from the zoning office, where we supply information that is then used to notify adjacent landowners to let them know that there's a zoning petition going on. We're also working for the zoning department on a GIS tool that would help issue accurate addresses using the GIS software. I'm not sure what Dee's been using currently, but I can think back to the old days when Chris was still here and he would literally get out the paper maps and measure with a ruler and issue an address. Well, now, of course, using the GIS software, there is ways to do that more accurately and efficiently. And they're working on a tool that will help the zoning department do that easily, efficiently, and accurately. So that's something that they're working on for that. Of course, they're doing ongoing things in the assessment world, and ETSB, you know that 911 is going through a major migration right now, and the GIS department is an integral part of that, because as you can imagine, in the 911 world, location matters. So there's a big project going on with regard to the GIS maps there, and they are continuing to collaborate with the ETSB department on that. I think there are other things that'll be in the written report, but I think that is the high level overview of those. And at this point, I would take any questions. Otherwise, I'll submit the written report to Becky for inclusion in the packet.
Is there any additional comments, questions, or concerns for Wendy? Appreciate it, Wendy. Moving on to veterans, I believe is what you have.
Okay, the kind of transportation fund, $641.93. Lee County VAC, what is that, VAC?
Huh?
What is it?
Says rent utility assistance.
Oh, yeah. It's the house. Right. It's assistance with rent.
Oh, I was just curious. $106.25.
Probably Veterans Assistance Council would be my guess.
Good.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
You're right.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the chuckle.
Oliver's Corner Market, $99.68. Lee County Transportation Fund, $278.
I have a total of $1,125.86.
Moving on to IT.
All right. Cindio, $1,100. CenturyLink, $128.27. CenturyLink, $1,858.20. CenturyLink, $135.63. ProVantage, $1,431 even. CenturyLink, $166.05. CenturyLink, $802.42. Verizon, $42.30. Verizon, $49.39. US Bank, $26.70. SHI International Corp., $2,148. SHI International Corp., $839.
I have a total of $8,726.96.
Paul, you want to give your report?
Yes, thank you. As you noted in the the claim sheet, we saw a phone and some internet charges in there, which may not have been in there previously. We're moving phones and internet into the IT purview, and you'll see more of that going in the future. And we're trying to consolidate so we just get one phone bill and one internet bill, and to keep it simplified going forward. So that's a relatively recent change. And then also things that have been completed in IT. Jonathan's paperwork has all been completed through the county board and PEST and everything. So he's a full-time employee of Lee County. Everybody just give him a hand here. And work that Jonathan largely has done is deployed computers in the county clerks in the public defender's office, and in addition to new hire computers in the treasurer's office and the circuit clerk's office. So thank you very much for your work in that regard. And we're still working on deploying some computers in maintenance, the sheriff's office, one more in the treasurer's office. And we just received a laptop for the assessor for that new employee that she hopes to hire pretty soon. So we'll be working on that. And then I'm beginning well, it's been ongoing, a security review of all the security policies, IT policies here in Lee County. Improved the Wi-Fi at the LAC, which solved some network stability issues. And I believe there's some memorandum of understandings being worked on behalf of the health department and the county and the like, tied to the phone systems, which allows me some greater access to their networks and approval of items on their network. Working as Wendy mentioned, working with EA on 911 on not so much their GIS portion of it, but the Visionaire upgrade or replacement system that they're working there. And we have other projects in the works or pending project manager availability on the vendors. And I just got an email on a new project, which I'll have to take up and bring to you at the next meeting. So any questions for me at this time?
I've got one. You have some sort of log of service requests, right?
Tickets, yeah, right now. And just, I'm also going to have it set up also for projects being something that's longer term. And I'm a little bit behind in rolling that out because we've got some three essentially big projects I want to roll into there and keep track of them that way. But the ticketing system is called Spiceworks. And I think we're at, where are we? About 540 support tickets since we started it at the end of February, which is a lot.
How up to date are you on being able to respond to requests for services?
Well, some of the items lead to projects. We kind of pull them off and longer. Depends what the ticket is. For example, in the 15 minutes from like 8:55 to 9:10 this morning, I took care of 3 because they were fairly straightforward. But then we have ones that are troubleshooting hardware. And for example, I was here this weekend, Saturday and part of Sunday, troubleshooting a problem with a computer that controls the air conditioning in new courts. And I didn't, knowing that there may be storms or something coming through this week, the power went out. Greg and his team would have lost the ability to reprogramming those easily. So I got a solution up and online this weekend for that. So he put that request into me, I think Thursday night, late. I worked on it Friday. So that one took, you know, 1 business day, but 3 actual days. So it just depends on the type of ticket. But if it's something critical like that, we'll just, you know, we throw everybody at it, or the best person at it. You know, Jonathan's really good at taking care of some of the basic setup things and some of the other introductory to network things. Zach's been handling the network issues. He just took care of a network share on another issue while we're in this meeting. And after this meeting, I have to go out to the highway department and do some software installs, but get back here and work out some plans for some other ticket solving later in the week at the sheriff's, you know, LEC and things like that. If it's immediate, we try to jump on it right away within, you know, as soon as we see the ticket. If it can be rescheduled to another date, we will. Right now, Zach and Jonathan are scheduling things out a week or 2 in advance right now, if it can be scheduled. So, for example, the new computers that I mentioned, in one more in the treasurer's office, one in the sheriff's and stuff, those are all tickets, but they're not urgent. We're not real urgent, but we're got them scheduled out for the next week or 2 now that we have the hardware here. And then, example, the one for Wendy just came in the other day, and she wanted to get that up in line sooner rather than later. So I'm hoping to get that to her this week. So.
Asked a different way, how old are your oldest tickets?
Well, we have 1 ticket from, we've got essentially a project, the 2 things regarding probation data, and she just sent me essentially what would be a project on it now. So those go back to February. And then the Wi-Fi system in new courts and old courts was a project that was already here when I got here. Unfortunately, our vendor FISIC wasn't able to configure those the way I needed to for security and for access. I've learned how to do that now. That I want to bring them in, and hopefully by the next this next administrative services committee meeting, be able to tell you that the new Wi-Fi in both of those buildings is up and running. So those are items that were actually 2 of them started before I actually got here. So it's, you know, I'm not particularly, I would have liked to jump on them sooner, but because of different things that came up, but we're working on them now. And at least the Wi-Fi will be done by the next committee meeting here. So, and, but and I tell everybody just to submit a ticket. If it evolves into a project, I'll let you know. So.
When somebody submits a ticket and they feel that it should have higher priority or they need it quicker, can they enter in the system that they need it quicker, or do they call you? How does that work?
They just note it in the ticket, and the ticket kind of goes back and forth to our team and them, and we try to work out the priority as best we can. If it's working, just not working well, I try to assign my team to other things that just aren't working at all, you know. If it's an easy, low-hanging fruit type of thing, we just turn it around. You know, there's a real simple one came in a couple of months ago where, oh, we need a couple of DVD players out at the jail, and I ordered it and it was there, you know, the next day, you know. So that was low-hanging fruit. But some of those solutions involve either new hardware, new software, or upgrades that, one, we need to go out for quotes for, or find out how much, how much the solution is going to cost before we try to implement it. So, and then in some of the department heads that come to me and say, well, we've already done the work on this and we'd like to implement this. And that's not the best way to approach me. It's to bring me in at the beginning of the project so I can go through the demos and the like to give you some advice on it. If the things that were already here already started, that's a little bit different. But everything's going to have to be very secure coming in. I'm going to require quotes, maybe not necessarily bids, technology necessarily. If you have a preferred vendor, it doesn't necessarily go through a bid process. But I think due diligence requires everything to go out for quotes just to see what the market's bearing for that same type of services or products out there. So, but yeah, it essentially comes down to me, and I'll talk to the department head and my team to see how fast we can turn something out. A couple of projects I'm disappointed in personally that they haven't turned around faster, and so in the next few weeks I'm applying everything I can to it just to get them done. The things that were from February, those things that are projects I'd really like to wrap up by July or in July. So.
You good, Jim? Any additional questions for Paul? Entertain a motion to pay the claims.
I'll move.
Claims. Okay, claims.
Bill first, Jack second. All in favor of paying the claims?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Moving on to old business, update on COVID policy and numbers for April. Our numbers for April, we had 7 employees for a total of 40 days off. That's a dramatic decrease from March. We don't have anything for May right now, I don't believe. But we're definitely seeing it trending across the county going down, in our department and in our county going down. So my recommendation is that we don't adjust any of the COVID policy right now. I think we're seeing things going in the right direction. I think it's the right thing to do for the employees. And let's just continue to reevaluate it every 3 months if you guys are okay with that.
Was just a comment that I was gonna make here is I'm sure every employee has had an opportunity to be vaccinated. So I'm just hoping that here probably next month, maybe we could revisit this policy when it comes to being off for a COVID and paying them for COVID.
Yeah, the struggle, Jack, is that whether it's not a mandatory vaccination, right?
I wholeheartedly agree, but it's their choice.
Correct.
And so that's just my thought there.
So
My
you
2 cents.
you'd like to see them start having to use vacation time?
I would
for sick time.
I would like for them to start having to use vacation if they was, especially if the vaccine was offered to them to, especially all the employees. And then that's just my 2 cents.
One, though, you can't ask people, I don't think, if they took it, right?
Right,
And
right.
there's people that took it that
Exactly
still
right.
ended up with it. So then what do you say?
Yeah, I know an example where somebody, and I think our health department's getting better as far as tracking it, but I know somebody who was exposed after they had the vaccine and they still had to quarantine for 10 days. So that's like, it depends on the county that you're coming from, and there's a lot of.
Yeah, I obviously we'd have to defer to the health department on what their policy is too, because it would be very difficult to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can reach out to the health department and see what their recommendation is.
It seems like the science is changing.
And I
daily.
think they are definitely seeing that too. Any comments in regards to that?
Bob has
I got one, Chris. I think you'd want to have a conversation with Sickage too and ask what their policy and what they recommend on that also.
Yep. It'd be a good thing for the administrator to
Yeah.
handle.
Yep.
Moving on, and that's why the heavy hitters just walked into the room here. We want to talk about updating the claims procedures and recommendations. And so Bob kind of approached me about this and didn't really realize how much time and energy was wrapped up in reading every single claim that we currently do. Currently with the administrator hopefully being hired here in the near future, we gave them financial authority, but as you look through the claims that we paid today, there were several there were pretty much everything that we paid in here today is just reoccurring bills, whether it be telephone, electrical, so on and so forth. And so instead of reading all these by every committee, we spent 55 minutes on it. My recommendation is that, and talking to Nancy and Paula, that the administrator really has the oversight in some of the smaller claims. And so the discussion is, what's that dollar amount? So in my perfect world, I think it's $2,500 that the administrator would essentially say, yep, these are good. They would still have to be approved by committee, just like we did. But instead of reading every single bill that we had here and spending time on that. We're going to spend time looking at credit card statements. We're going to look at personal reimbursements. Yeah, Jim's looking at the IT right there, and that was a long one, and there's nothing there that's not even a reoccurring bill. So it's kind of scratching our head of why we spend time on some of that. So we'd still have to do it. And like I said, I've heard people talk about $1,000, $1,500. And like I said, I'm at $2,500. I think what this would do, everybody's worried about the number of eyes that would be on it. I'm a big believer in enabling our department heads to do their job and holding them accountable for the numbers that they turn in, the bills. And then it would go to Nancy's office, who gets a chance to look at it. And then it would still go to Paula's office to get a chance to look at it. So there'd be still 4 people looking at it for some of these reoccurring bills. And so I open it up for discussion there.
I think the board rules say that this committee has to review the bills, the claim.
Mhm.
If we didn't read them individually, what would we be seeing? What would the members be seeing so that we could discharge?
Make sure you're talking to your mic. What would we do? You'd still be able to see the bill, but instead of reading it, it would just kind of be passed around the table. So if you look at how we do paid in vacation and an executive, it'd be much the same way. Where paid in vacation is not read out loud, but we actually take the envelope and pass it around the table. And so you would still have an actual individual chance to look at all the bills and claims and have any questions that you may have. But as today, we didn't even ask a question about one of the bills because they were all reoccurring bills. So I think it would just cut down on the amount of time that we could spend at looking at the bills that we need to be looking at, and then spending more time on getting department head reports, like more information like what Wendy and Paul gave today, where we can actually spend some time knowing what's going on in their department rather than worrying about a ComEd bill personally.
Yeah, and I think if it was highlighted like something abnormal, right, to call it out.
Yeah, the administrator would still be able to be like, hey, even if it's a $50 charge, they'd be like, you may want to question this in committee. So it's about making sure your administrator still had that. And I believe Mr. Palin, you're on properties. That's got a ton of bills. So I think that the challenge is figuring out that number, but they spend a lot of time on bills and paying claims in comparison to even this committee. So would you?
I think it's a great idea, and $2,500 is a fine figure, so I'm all in favor of it.
Mr. Olson.
I think he did make a good point. Chris said we'd have it on an Excel spreadsheet, and we'd still have the bills with it. We could set it there at the table if you want to thumb through it, if you got a question. It's not that we're trying to hide anything from anybody or do anything. We just want to make it more seamless and, you know, them reoccurring bills sometimes. But I see Paula shaking her head about looking her office in charge of making sure, scrutinizing things, and I'm sure she wants to stay out of that.
I do, actually. My office doesn't look at any of the bills. The only thing that we get is that cover sheet that you all sign off on, because statutorily, I can't pay a bill until you guys approve it. So I don't get the stack of bills. I just get that single sheet. So our office doesn't look at the bills, and we don't really know what they're for. We're just looking for your signature. So we're not really a review is all I wanted to clarify.
They're not a review, but if we make a mistake, if it says $60 and it should have been $30,
we'll catch that.
They'll catch that kind of stuff.
Yes.
They're not being critical of what we're doing. And same thing with Nancy's office. They're not being critical. If I have a $30 bill and I accidentally write 60 on there, they're going to catch that. That's the things that we're trying to catch.
Yeah, Chris.
Somebody would notice like new vendor all of a sudden popping up that we've never paid before that nobody knows anything about.
It's enabling the department heads to be accountable, and it's enabling the administrator to be accountable for what they need to be. We personally, and especially as we go from 24 down to 20, we can't be here spending time. We need to be worried about policies. We've already given these department heads budgets. We don't need to micromanage them. Let's enable our department heads and our people to make the decisions based off the finances we gave them. Mr. Nicholson, you had something?
Yeah, I agree with majority of what you just said. I don't know if the dollar amount should be the criteria for the administrator, whoever that may be, okaying the bill. If it's a reoccurring budgetary item, such as a utility bill or something is taken out every month, fine. I don't have a problem with that because we've already approved that money to be spent at budget time. But I do believe that the $2,500, I don't believe in a dollar amount. I think we should, anything other than budgetary accounts, we should look at them.
So the reason why I came up with this number, and I sat down with Danny Langloss at Dixon to figure out what they were doing and kind of figure that out. So their number is if it's not greater than $20,000, it's never seen by their board, by their committees. It's automatically signed off on by they have 3 different departments. They have a finance director, a city manager, and a city administrator. Anything less than that is looked at by them. It's still approved, and it still goes through the process of going around the table that they can look at, but they don't read each individual number. So there's no way I would say $20,000 is the number we want to use. But as we look through our bills today, and I think as you look at some of the other committees' bills, I think we could start at 2,500. We can start at 1,500. And my goal is that if we have an administrator hired here in the next month to demo this and add service before we roll it out to the other committees.
Yeah.
So
I'll reiterate, I don't think the dollar amount, $2,500, $1,500, $500 should be the break point. I think that we should categorize the bills and each department head can do that. And if it's a phone bill or electric bill or a whatever bill, fine, let the administrator check off on that, fine. But if it's not a budgeted item, then it needs to be looked at by the committee.
well, in that
And I
defense,
don't want
John,
to compare
everything's
us,
a budgeted
and
item.
let me talk.
Oh,
I don't want to compare us to the city of Dixon. And I relate to 2 words, is Rita Crundwell. And I think if they had had a better checks and balances, that might not have happened to the extent that it did. I don't know if Paul agrees with me, but she was a basically unsupervised person. And I spent a lot of time fielding calls from people, probably hundreds of calls on, how'd you let her get away with that? And I'd have to explain that county doesn't do that. We caught one after $800 and we caught one after less than $100, just because we had a good checks and balances. And I was in on the decision to eliminate the claims committee, which we thought long and hard about that, but that was kind of a waste of time too. But as I say, I don't think the dollar amount should be the criteria you're going to use in setting up these bills for the administrator.
Paul, go ahead.
Hi, as a relatively new employee, I mean, I've seen the kind of the checks and balances that are already in place. Staff from Nancy's office like helped me, with a vendor number or consistency in the format of the report, but not necessarily the detail of the report. And then and Paula and her team, if allocating it to the correct count number and the like, but they're not there to say, well, that's a good bill or not. It's just how to process it properly here after the board's approved it. So, and having been on a few boards myself, I think the board, should be given the opportunity to review it in some format. And the one suggestion is my current board has our claim sheet is a long, it's a lot of pages. We have a lot of claims every month, but there's a little bit more detail in the description line. And if you just provide a little bit more in the cover sheet, that might be enough detail for enough people to go through. For example, at the college, anything that the disbursement to an individual, like a staff member, is really kind of clearly brought out. It's like reimbursement to staff member, blah, blah, blah for this. And it's kind of a flag to you if you're going through the claim sheet. And it's just an easier way to go through it because it's pages and, things that you can flip through this way and scan rather than going through all the individual invoices, which you could still make available to your board members. But just a little bit more detail in your description line might help people go through the bills a little bit faster without necessarily have to reading them all off individually. So, and I don't disagree with the review of things that are not standard operating things, not things that haven't already been negotiated, like utility bill. I mean, things that have been negotiated, like utility bills or contracts. You can still question because, as a board member, you may realize, well, this is a recurring quarterly bill, but it's kind of high if we reviewed it, recently. So that's always good too. But I would flag, if you could, things that are not usual, not normal.
Chris?
Yes.
So we did talk about this at the department head meeting. Chris brought this up. And I think generally speaking, the department heads were in favor of that. I won't speak for them. I'll speak for myself. I love the idea of the efficiency of it. I love the idea of being able to spend more time on my report. You all know I tend to be wordy. I'd rather tell you about what's going on in my office than spend time on the claims. I think the idea is great. I don't think it matters a lot right now to decide, is there going to be a dollar threshold or not? What is the dollar threshold? Because I think everybody needs to embrace that this would be a work in progress and something that could be modified month by month as you all get into the groove of what works and what doesn't. I think going forward with the idea and just understanding that it's going to be a work in progress will help move this forward. That would be my suggestion.
Oh, you had something?
My only concern with not necessarily the dollar amount but is this a budgeted item or not? I don't know that you guys are necessarily going to know whether or not there's budget dollars available for it. If somebody has already spent most of their money and they turn in something that pushes them over the budget, unless you're really following the line by line budget information, I don't know that you would necessarily know that. So you may want to take that into consideration in how you want to approach this.
Senior Olson.
Chris, I'm going to pass this around. This is claims paid in vacation from April 9th to May 10th. And the total amount that I signed for was $168,398. So if anything needs scrutiny, probably that needs scrutiny more than anything.
Can I say something, please? So getting back to claims, all those claims that do come to our office, and my girls have been pretty good, I think, about sending out emails. And I just want to, push forward that if there's ever a question or you need a vendor number, to please reach out to them. Just don't go willy-nilly and throw it onto their desks, because they have claims that literally are this high. And it takes an awful lot of time. So like I said, if you ever have questions about anything, please, they're there to answer your phone calls and or your emails. Thanks.
Chris, going back to that claims paid on vacation, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Nancy, but it was designed for stamps. What else was it?
Critical office material.
And bills that weren't paid on time before the next meeting or whatever. Well, it's escalated to this now, and that's, the stack is like that thick that I go through a couple times in between meetings to make sure that we're doing it right.
And on that same note, if you look at the paid on vacation, a lot of them on there are US Bank. So it's the department head's credit card bills or whatever. And we have a hard time understanding why, if you don't have those collected and can go through regular claims versus paid on vacation.
Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with what Nancy just said, that I do have a problem with US Bank credit card bills being paid in vacation. But you'll notice on that list, that paid in vacation list, many of those are bills that just got in late to save a few bucks, or bills that need some sort of confidentiality to be paid without them going through the board public. And the paid in vacation claims there's way too many of them that are paid in vacation. And some of them I know are because we haven't been able to work out with the vendor to delay some of the late fees, but I think that's something we should do. And in reality, and it's not always in reality, the paid and vacation claims are reviewed by, or the numbers at least are reviewed by the 5 or 6 people that are on the executive committee. So there is some review there. I mean, the chairman signs them, but the executive committee is passed around them. If you have a question, you should make that question if you're on the executive committee.
Can I make another comment?
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to argue with John about the Dixon thing, but I think you actually can trust it, primarily because I'm the author of that document that you discussed with Danny. And their whole payment system completely changed while I was over there. I mean, nothing works the same way that Rita did. There's separation of duties. There's some people who can approve things and put things in the computer. Some people who can actually print checks. there's a report that is done by another person that goes to the board so they see the entire list so that you can trust that stuff. They're actually have a very good, a little bit better, a better internal control system than we have here right now. So
Okay, and then my question would be, maybe we need to convert to something like that rather than have what we have.
That's kind of where the stepping stone is, right? And the problem is statutorily, what can we do and what can't we do? Paula and I talked for about an hour on this, and this is kind of the easy button, right? Because it's still going to come back from the administrator's office into here that says, these are already signed off on. We still have to pay them, make a motion to pay them. It's going to look just like we do an executive for paid in vacation where we don't read off every single bill. And we're not reading off every single bill. And there's a bill here for $14,000. There's a bill here for $60,000.
Who are they to?
Yeah, exactly. That we're to Cindio or to Maggie.
That's phone bill.
And I understand but they're big bills and nobody in executives. So we're talking about not spending time in committees talking about a $2,500 bill when in executive we do the exact same thing. Because
Don't get me wrong, I'm ready to cut time. It's nice to cut the problems that the various committees have. Cut down the hours you have to spend in committee. And they're again working with Paula, who set up the Dixon thing right now. As long as there's scrutiny of the bills and you're open and above board with all the bills that you see, I don't have any problem with that. There again, I think they should be budgetary items.
Greg, you want to go ahead?
I'm going to throw my 2 cents in because I think just in general, I think the claims process is going to have to be looked at more closely because I think how it was intentionally or constructed in the past with the paid on vacation, I think the county's business and how much it's actually doing has changed probably immensely since that authorization probably 15 or 20 years ago. I know that from my perspective, and I think this is probably the case for other grantees that are receiving money from various state entities, if there's a late charge, I'm not getting reimbursement through my state funder. And I know that if it's 50 or $100 or $200 a month, you roll that over however many departments we have, we're talking about a substantial loss in potential reimbursement from the state that, quite frankly, I don't want to have. And I'm sure that as county board members, you don't want to have a gap that's building of that size. So I'm looking to be, I can go back to my websites, talk to my vendors however many times. I was still doing it this morning in preparation for claims for tomorrow. And I still don't have all the invoices that are going to be paid or should be paid on a monthly basis. I still have a half a dozen that are outstanding because of a lag in them actually processing some of those statements. So I think we need to look constructively at the claims process more closely. I believe the $2,500 threshold or whatever the board eventually comes to will be a good starting point, but I think it does need a little more scrutiny. And one piece, Chris, I think that we haven't even touched on yet was the pilot project intended to actually get those claims to somebody by Friday before the meeting? Is that also a change in the potential process?
Yeah, so whatever, let's just use ad service as an example. Everybody would have had to have their claims to the administrator by 9 o'clock on Friday. So that way they had chance 24 hours essentially, or 8-hour workday to look at those claims prior to today's meeting. So it wouldn't be that the administrator got all of them at 9 o'clock and had to approve them all then. They were going to be showed, they all had, essentially every department head had to submit them a day earlier. And in the department head meeting, when that came up, they were all like, yeah, perfect, that's no problem. So that's not a reason for not proceeding with this. So Jim actually had something first, so.
Yeah, I agree with Wendy. It's going to expedite things. And in the whole long run, you're still, if the administrator does it, you're still going to have another set of eyes on it, being it's a department head. So there's some separation of duty there. I agree with also Paul Rudolphi was in a couple months ago from Paula's office, and we just have to push back on the vendor and say, you have to have it in the first week of the month. I know it's tough, as what Greg just said, it's going to be tough to do it, but I think that, like Bob said, on that paid vacation, you still got some that are still US Bank, for an example. We'd have to, push back on them just a touch, but,
Yeah, I
And
think the
the-
paid in vacation is definitely a whole nother conversation
Yeah.
altogether that we have to.
but the claim process, that sounds good to me.
Paul, do you have something else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I mean, just even working with a couple of new vendors, try to educate them on our process here. And, if they send me an invoice that I get today, it's kind of missed the process. And so we're actually gonna be 30 days out, past. And so I've been trying to set up net terms 45 days with them, just to, so a buffer there. But in terms of the late fees and the like for regular thing, and CenturyLink hasn't been charging, I guess, late fees, but I look at the statements and, it's their cycles is off from ours, and so is US Bank. I mean, so it's close to 40 days, 45 before they're getting, so they're sending out letters saying you've missed it. And some of the vendors aren't gonna want to play nice with us, but I mean, I see you can try, but I just like to see what we can do about streamlining some of the payments, the regular payments. We're not incurring any late fees or anything for things that we've already kind of budgeted for that are regular things. And then within the reports that we give, point out things also that are not recurring. This is unique and this is tied to this project, just to bring it to your attention.
So moving forward, I would like to set a dollar figure that if we have an administrator hired for the July meeting, I would like to demo this through ad service, and I kind of leave it up to you guys, the 5 committee members, of what we want to start off with. To Wendy's point, this is going to be a living, breathing, ever-changing number until we get it set, what we can use for all the other committees. And so what number are you guys comfortable with if we have an administrator to give it a shot?
We just
I
talked
feel that $2,500 is fine, and pending refinance or refiguring it, lowering it, raising it, what have you later on, but let's start with 25.
Danielle?
I would say start with 2,500. I'm with Bill, and we can kind of look at it next month to say how many would we have missed if we,
Bob,
should we have had a
do you have
lower?
anything? You okay with 2,500?
Yeah, that's okay.
Jack?
I'm good with 25.
Yeah, I guess on a test basis, I am a little concerned about the arbitrariness of this.
Oh, your mic.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the arbitrariness of picking this number, because we're saying below a certain threshold, there are lesser protections. And if something goes bad and somebody says, why in the world weren't we looking at $2,000 bills?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, I think it still comes through, and we're still going to see those bills that come through. It's just not spending the time reading out loud each individual bill. Like I said, when we talk about paid in vacation, we don't read any of those bills at executive, and that's a $60,000 bill that we didn't. It literally just comes across my desk. Yes, it's a $60,000 bill. I open it up and say, yep, it is for what it says it is, and it moves on. So I think the oversight is still there because I still get to visually see it, but I'm not spending time of reading it off. So, and to the point, I think what I really want everybody to look at is pay attention to the other committees that you're on and see what dollar figure that it might be. It may be $1,000 in properties is what we only should do in properties. And that's going to be the transcend number for all committees. So I think we're just kind of, I don't know how to answer your question. I don't know how you pick a number. I understand where Mr. Nicholson's coming from, where it's all reoccurring bills, but some reoccurring bills we had some in there for $3,000. So it's just, you're just kind of, we're trying something different, right?
Well, I'm okay with the $2,500 on a test basis, but I think we should keep an open mind as to what John was talking about. After going through that, we may see that it's better or more practical to just be looking at recurring bills as opposed to an arbitrary cutoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we all keep an open mind to it, we can see what happens, and we'll try $2,500 if we have an administrator hired. Jack, did you have something else?
I was just going to comment that when would we, you said we can take a look at these bills. but we're not going to read them. Are we going to be looking at them before meeting?
You'll
After
look
meeting?
at them during the meeting.
During the meeting?
Just as they're given their department head report, because if there's any that are over that $2,500, they'll have to be read as they are.
Right.
You'll be able to see it as the meeting goes on. So, because we still have to make a motion to pay claims and so on and so forth. Bob?
I would have them here an hour ahead of the meeting. If you wanted to look through them, I'd have them in a folder. And I'd also, if 2,500 is your number, I'd put 2,500 and I'd add, it has to be in the budget. So it's a budgetary item and 2,500. I'd have them here if you want to look through them before the meeting or come in the day before, where you can go through it to make them more visible, everything go through.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
If we could just look at the cover sheets and spot the one.
Yeah, so I'm usually here 30 minutes beforehand and already have all of them. If we're asking the department heads to have them here on Friday already, it's pretty easy that if you show up at 8:30 to here, you get veterans and you get treasurers and you get ads, you can start and then switching around. So absolutely.
And Paula, a cover sheet that is the same for every department?
That's not going to happen, Jack. You can just stop down.
Come on, I'm supporting that. Go, Jack. Come on.
Not completely. It would be nice, but we do get what we need off of those.
Okay.
But yeah, there is a definite lack of consistency.
I'll
So
I'll work on that.
is there any other questions, comments, concerns as far as the claims process goes?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about consistency and trying to speed things along. What would it take to get a consistent format?
It would take Jack working on it, right, Jack?
It would take Jack
I'll try.
organizing it and Jack convincing all of the department heads to do it the same way that we ask them to do it,
Go,
That's been
Jack.
That's been tried several times.
including all of the elected officials.
We're
Just saying.
we're going to a way that we can't do it. So let's put it this way. It's not time that we're going to spend this meeting talking about. So
Well, okay, I mean. but
yeah.
Jack's
We'll talk
working on
about
it.
I will, I would do hardball. I would say you don't term in this format and the bills don't get paid. And that's it. If you're an elected official, somebody could use that against you in the future. So there you go.
So
This elected official doesn't
Fair
pay their
enough.
bills. Okay,
Enough.
that's a great campaign issue.
Yeah, Chris, and I would say I do agree with the chairman that, if it's a budgeted item and it's $2,500, I don't have a problem with that. It's the non-budgeted items that I would have a problem.
Yeah,
with that dollar
absolutely.
figure.
Moving on to rules and procedures discussion. There's some minor stuff in there that we need to discuss, and especially with the reduction in the county board, we have to be considering if we or should we reduce the number of committees. Standing committees right now, we have 5. And I believe that if we are going down to 20 members, I believe 5 is going to be a stretch. That's kind of what feeds the claims process and procedures. And as I look at it, I'm going to make my recommendation is the easy button. And I think the most logical button, because I've looked at it about 5,000 different ways, is to combine ad service and public safety and call it public service. Pretty fancy, right? It came with that fancy name. The reason for that, and I've talked through it several times with other people, and transportation really can't be combined with anybody. They're standalone levy. Finance, we don't want to combine with anybody. And properties already has a ton going on. They with capital projects that are constantly happening. So that leaves the only 2 other committees as being ad service and public safety. Now, is there other departments in ad service or public safety that we can push towards properties and not have to absorb all of it together into one committee? Possibly, but I think that's the discussion that we can have here. And then once again, it goes back to that's the reason for making claims more streamlined, is that if we have to combine committees, that we're not spending 3 hours here looking at claims. So thoughts there?
I think it goes to Wendy's point that it's also another work in progress, right? It's not something that can never be changed, final. Gives us the opportunity to try it, make adjustments as we go before the 20 board member
Correct.
is finalized.
I'm looking at Bob, but I know we've had discussions about potentially even consolidating committees before the reduction to 20, just to make sure that we do it right. Because once again, as a we can demo run kind of some things as we get the claims process correct, as we get, or more streamlined, not correct, but more streamlined, and see how we can be more efficient with our time. So.
We had some talk about maybe doing it before the election. I don't know if we legally can do that, Charlie. I was gonna have that conversation with you. So after the election, it's seamless. We can go right into that format, the new format we're in. We'll have some discussion about that, whether if anybody's on board with doing that. If not, we'll wait till the election, but it's where I'm waiting. It's what I was waiting to hear.
I was thinking if looks could kill, you'd be dead over there, Bob. Did you see that?
The wise man sitting up there on the podium.
Working through the whole claims idea in my head.
Good, we're trying to keep you on your toes. You gotta.
Stuff here sweating away.
Chris, you got the two committees that have the most claims combining them.
Absolutely, and I think it goes back to the conversation of, can you get done with the committees that you have with 20 members? And I don't know if we can. That if we go to 4 standing committees, then you're able to do that. That's the whole process, like thought process, right? Is that if we are at 24, I don't think you have to combine, but going to 20, you're kind of personally between a rock and a hard place, I think, from a labor standpoint of people. So any comments on there? Or do you think it's an awful idea?
I don't know enough about the workload of public safety.
Okay, and I know Jack sits on both this one and public safety. So.
Right, and I'm sitting there looking at the different departments in the public safety committee, and they're all related. They're all related. Whereas the public and the administrative services, there's some that aren't so related. That you could probably farm a couple of those to different committees themselves.
Like, could we farm IT over to properties, which is handling more of the Wi-Fi and the internet of this? So then Paul would go over to there, so we get rid of.
So yeah,
Do I get to vote on that?
I don't know if we want him.
So I'm just sitting there looking at the different ones. You're trying to which ones kind of work together, and do they kind of work a little bit together, so that's what I'm thinking here, whereas public safety, they all are circuit clerk, sheriff, coroner, they're all in the same,
I think if you look at the breakdown, Jack, it was done because of nonviolent versus violent offices.
So yeah, you really couldn't break up, I don't think, public safety, but I think we could break up a couple of it in this committee to the different department heads somewhere else. So,
agreed.
Just in terms of the workload, though, if the net result is that we're going to end up with 2 to 3 hour meetings instead of 1 to 2 hour meetings, some people work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not everyone is retired.
No. I understand that. And
if you have to give up a whole morning for a committee assignment, that could be a real deterrent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we already have that deterrent, right? That's the reason why we have very few people who are not retired at this current point. And that's why I think the claims process and speeding that up to and streamlining that kind of feeds into the combination of combining committees.
and I think, I think as a board member that, if I've got, some questions coming up, or, that are just, they're just simple questions, but like to Paula, call her up on the phone and ask that question. Why wait to a committee meeting, and to discuss that question, when you could just call her up if unless it's something that is, out there that everyone needs to, and the world needs to know, just call her up and ask it if you're just curious about it. I mean, that would save a little bit of time too. But, listen to the, the things that are going on. I think the public would also like to listen to what's going on in the different departments. If they really are listening, we don't get much coverage from the media anymore. It seems like, this is our only avenue now is YouTube. So,
Hey, Chris.
Yes, Bob.
The department heads, the part you're not looking at, they've got to go to all the meetings and give their spiel, and that would help them. There'd be one less committee they'd have to go to also. So it makes them more productive. But this is just a concept. Charlie, we got him here, but it's just a concept we tossed around. I mean, it's open for discussion. If anybody's got any better ideas, I'm all about it. So we just want to make it more smoothly.
So what I did was I took an arbitrary 20 board members and split it up between 5 committees and 4 committees, right? And 5, if you try to do 5 committees with 20 board members, less your chair, you're now down to 19 people to serve on 4 committees. You start getting pretty tight, especially as you start looking at your chairs really having a struggle with, like, I couldn't serve on public safety as a chair of ad service. Not that I couldn't, but from a workload standpoint, it's just, it starts becoming a lot. So, that's what I would encourage you to do is just sit down and work through it yourself and see how you come up with committees with 20 board members. So.
Yeah, no, I know you talked about people at work. I know for me, for work, it's easier to just say Mondays are out for me versus a little bit of Monday, a little bit of Tuesday, like a little bit of every day isn't going to work for a working person versus I need to use a vacation day or a personal day or something for a Monday, and they know and are supportive, but not 2 to 3 hours every day. They're not going to be supportive, right? So that's just me personally speaking.
So like I said, I don't think there's much more discussion to be had there. Go through rules and procedures. There's some, like I said, some minor stuff that needs to be adjusted. Some stuff that's on executive that needs to go back down to ad service or public safety or so on and so forth. But we just need to be working through some of that. And some of that is dictated by the census. So we're just beginning the conversation rather than we're trying to be proactive rather than reactive. So.
I think another thing to look at is Ogle County, how they do it, only for when we were doing the IT thing. I don't know that we could do it all in one day, but it'd be interesting to see what benefits they have versus what we have by spreading it out.
Yeah.
So we're talking to them and their board members of saying.
I think they're even more retired than we are as far as board members go.
Okay.
Oh,
makes
yeah,
sense then.
they're like 28, 26 or something like that.
Well, but they're all retired. I think we even have a younger age than they do. So
You throw that medium off.
what's that?
You throw that medium off.
So do you, Jack.
Well, when I was on the Winnebago County Board, all the committee meetings were at 5 or 5:15 or later. And then township meeting was at 6 o'clock PM or later. RVC 5:15 or later. So you could adjust your hours, but I don't think you want to do that.
The problem is we lose department heads or potentially lose department heads. And I think that's the value that.
I know.
Right.
For sure.
So it's conversation. Go ahead. We'll look at it and it's on everybody's radar and we'll discuss it next month some more. Holiday calendar for judicial and non-judicial employees. Did you say we needed a vote on this? So you've got it there. It's in your packet and there's your dates that they get off. That's pretty much it, right? This is just for information. Correct. Yep. The first one's set by the judge and the second one is by our
And then
handbook.
do we send this to the county board? Is that
No.
what we're doing?
It's just for information.
Information.
And last, I have a resolution of Chris Tennyson for our regional superintendent of schools. I'll entertain a motion for that.
Make a motion.
And a second, Miss Allen, Mr. Horstman, all in favor of sending this to executive?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. No executive session. Anything else for the good of the group? Make a motion to entertain or adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.